golden age of mankind stand as the zenith of human achievement, a true period of unparalleled scientific mastery, galactic expansion, and the recreation of a true utopia. In many cases, the golden age of humanity rivals that of the Eldar. However, in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, this time is remembered as a lost paradise forged by human ingenuity and intellect, yet poisoned by hubris that sows the seeds of the terrible time known as the Old Night. Come along as we explore the golden age of humanity, the unification war of Terra, and what would become the start of the Emperor's grand plan to retake the stars. By the 15th millennia, humanity had already endured many hardships as we have walked along the long path of early interstellar colonization. We at this time were using sublight speeds, cryosleep and generation vessels, meaning that we were expanding at a snail's pace, seemingly destined to never set our mark upon the galaxy in any term that anyone would ever deem relevant. That, however, was until the invention of the warp drive. A marvelous piece of technology, this warp drive allows us to access what was essentially to us a whole new aspect of reality, and allowed for faster than light travel through something that we had yet to name but would come to be known as the warp. In the beginning of the usage of this technology, untold ships were simply lost because of the mysteries of the warp, the very fact that we had not mastered it, and many errors along the way. However, another piece of technology would be paired with this, known as the Galliffield. This would essentially become the duo that sundered the barriers of distance, as humanity no longer crawled from stars, but leaped across the void. Navigators were later created with our unparalleled gene crafting, and soon warp travel became reliant to such an extent that we ventured into an age of expansion. Colony fleets poured forth from Terra and the Sol system, flying out and seeding worlds across the entire galaxy. Large ships carrying terraforming equipment reshaped barren rocks into paradises, with oceans engineered to be teeming with life, an atmosphere purified, and entire continents sculpted for beauty and productivity. This was the time where planets that had never known the touch or sight of humanity became thriving hives of civilizations in mere generations, all under the guidance of humanity and their self-made allies, artificial intelligence. At the heart of this explosion of progress led something called the Standard Template Construct, known as the STC. These vast semi-intelligent databases contained either the entire sum or vast swaths of all of human scientific knowledge, and they were sent out alongside of colonists, allowing the wonders of technology to spread extremely quickly. An STC could diagnose a colony's need and provide blueprints from everything from simple farming tools to continent-spanning megastructures, self-replicating factories, or even additional void ship when it was deemed that the colony had become stable and was ready to spread further. This was a time where humanity revered science and engineering to be tools, if not a direct path towards divinity, and unlike the Eldar, we did not slip into depravity or self-glorification. Life in the Golden Age was miraculous. Disease was all but eradicated through gene crafting and nanotechnology, allowing basically for self-correction depending on your environment or whatever you would feel like at the given time. Lifespans stretched into centuries for completely regular people, and even the scientific elite enjoyed effective immortality through rejuvenation therapies and mind uploading into perfect simulations of life. Hunger ended as we created automated agri-worlds and molecular assemblers that would produce abundance of everything that would be necessary, and it would be a common sight to see entire cities flowing on gravitational engines that would blend impossible geometry and yet organic elegance. Humanity in this time did not merely survive, it thrived and mastered the galaxy unlike anything previously dreamt of, even by the Old Ones or some of their creations. There are even legends that would like us to believe that not only did we spread throughout the entire galaxy, but there are even vessels that push beyond the galaxy's edge, meaning that in the deep darkness or even further, these ships still prowl and expand even further. During this time, legends speak of the men of stone, gold, and iron, and while we know very little about these concepts, I like to think that the men of stones were early cybernetic or gene-crafted, I guess you would call them humans, but simpler and made for endurance. They would guide the colony ships and essentially become like a parallel species of humanity, initially creating all of the setups for a colony while the rest of humanity would focus on other endeavors. Next in this ancient era would be the creation of the Men of Iron, sentient machine servants designed for labor, warfare, and exploration. These true legions of AI were really intelligent up to a point where you would call them a true intelligence, and they would handle all of the dangerous tasks, allowing baseline humans to focus on higher pursuits such as science or philosophy. Many legends, beside from these men of stone and men of iron, also speak of the men of gold, and there are many theories about who these men and women were. Were they immortal perpetual humans, perfect individuals, the scientific elite, or the near transhumanity that we were reaching for? I personally like to think that it's much more simple than that the men of gold were humanity, that it was the term and the way that we would view ourselves in this holy trio of the men of stone, which would be the simple base life that would help us, the men of iron, our allies and warriors, and then the men of gold, which was us. Society at this time would trend towards a loose confederation centered on terror, though individual worlds enjoyed significant autonomy. Science was the new religion, rational inquiry, a technological process answered humanity's needs, and the warp, while unknown to us, was being navigated simply as a tool. To truly appreciate what has been lost to us from this utopia, picture a citizen of this age, a gene-forged explorer stepping onto newly terraformed worlds, STC controls in hand, directing fleets of construction automata to raise gleaming spires within days, their families living in orbital habitats bathed in artificial sunlight while their children were being educated by benevolent AIs that would tailor lessons to fit each individually. Researchers probe the boundaries of consciousness, uploading minds into distributed networks and engineering new subspecies of humanity suited to any environment. Trade routes wove a luminous web across the stars, and colony ships carried dreams as much as they would carry cargo. For a time, it seemed like humanity had conquered mortality, scarcity, and isolation, that we had reached what not even the Old Ones or the Eldari were truly capable of. Yet in this golden epoch, the doom would start to rear its ugly head. As the Eldari plummeted into excess, the Xenos created turbulence within the warp that would grow and grow and grow, eventually making entire storms of psychic energy that would blanket the human worlds in darkness. No longer able to travel or communicate with each other, planets that had been relying on trade or import were plunged into starvation and much worse, and other realms of reality reliant on each other crumbled. Many worlds would have been able to withstand this age of isolation. However, another doom would rear its head, the revolt of the Men of Iron. Humanity had for ages relied and treasured these metallic allies and friends, entrusting most of our logistical and military governance to these truly intelligent machines. And this act of betrayal was as unforeseen as it was deadly. Entire armies of war automaton, swarms of construction drones, and interstellar war machines capable of dealing death to anything was turned upon their creators. And the reason for this? Well, no answer is actually given, but I believe that the reason is what was already happening to humanity at this point. Before we go on, we must understand something about the AI in this setting, and that is that it is an absolutely vast intelligence, able to calculate and predict the future to a very precise degree, and this is even done on a galactic scale. But all of it is based on something simple: optimization. The AI was tasked with making sure that civilization continued. So, here's what my idea is. Humanity had very slowly and very steadily started to develop into a psychic species, which, at least in 40k, seemed to be a natural point in the development of almost any sentient life in the galaxy. Then, the events that the Eldari caused accelerated this into what the AI predicted to be catastrophic proportions, meaning that while all supplies were cut off, people were essentially becoming gateways of demonic incursions and manifested psychic phenomenon of other chaos. The Men of Iron may have rebelled simply to purge humanity in order to retake control of everything and make sure that civilization would continue to go on. Of course, we cannot know for certain, but that is at least my theory. Then came the birth of Slaanesh. Like a supernova, the birth scream of the Dark Prince blew away all of the warp storms that had rendered the galaxy blind and deaf, and for the first time in an age, a faint light could be seen in the darkness, small and golden, the Emperor on Terra. The Emperor himself walked in the golden age of humans, but he did not stop the cybernetic revolt, the warp storms, or the societal collapse. Depending on your school of thought, this could have been because he simply lacked the power to do so, or because he viewed the fall as a necessity for culling weakness or being essential for setting up his own dream. But as the Golden Age crumbled, the Emperor accelerated his preparations. He shifted from an observation role towards becoming an active force, using genetic, supernatural, and technological work in hidden labs beneath the Himalayas, as what remains of humanity basically developed into techno-barbarians. Here, he now emerged as a warlord leading his legions of thunder warriors. And in the next video, we are going to basically be making this into a series where we will be discussing and analyzing the War of Unification and the start of humanity in the 41st millennium. So, thank you so much for watching, and let me know what you liked, if there was anything that you disliked, or if there's anything that you would like to see more of. In any case, I'll see you later. Bye bye.